High atop Burnaby Mountain sits a campus unlike any other, Fraser University, opened in 1965. Bold, experimental, and controversial from the start. This is the history of how SFU came to be and how it became one of Canada's most unique universities. Even before British Columbia joined Confederation, there was a recognized need for local post-secondary education. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, early attempts often involved affiliations with Eastern Canadian universities, most notably McGill. Victoria College, for example, began offering first-year McGill curriculum in 1903. In Vancouver, the McGill University College of British Columbia operated from 1906 to 1915, allowing students to begin their studies closer to home before transferring east to complete their degrees. These institutions offered local access, but lacked the independence and authority to grant degrees. The push for a provincial university culminated in the creation of University of British Columbia. Although legislation passed in 1908, construction was delayed by the First World War. UBC opened in temporary facilities in 1915 and moved to its permanent Point Grey campus in 1925 after a passionate student-led campaign known as the Great Trek. For decades, UBC remained the province's only public degree-granting university. As the population grew, especially after World War II, the demand for higher education surged. By the 1950s, UBC was overwhelmed. Lecture halls were overcrowded, courses were oversubscribed. It became clear that one university alone couldn't meet the needs of a rapidly growing and modernizing province. In response to mounting pressure, the provincial government began exploring options for a second university. Premier W.A.C. Bennett, whose social credit government prioritized infrastructure and modernization, saw higher education as essential to British Columbia's future. Beyond easing the strain on UBC, a second university would promote competition, increase access, and support the province's economic and demographic growth. In 1960, the government formally announced its intentions to build a new university, one that would reflect the changing values of the time and serve a broader cross-section of British Columbians. In 1962, the provincial government appointed a 5-person committee to lead the development of the new university. Chaired by Dr. Gordon Shrum, a respected physicist and former UBC administrator, the committee was tasked with creating a modern, forward-thinking institution from the ground up. One of their first responsibilities was selecting a location. Sites across the Lower Mainland were considered, including places like Sunshine Hills in Delta, Green Timbers in Surrey, and Mundy Park in Coquitlam. Ultimately, the committee chose a recently logged parcel of Crown land on Burnaby Mountain, a location that offered both seclusion and sweeping views, while placing the university within reach of Metro Vancouver's growing population. With the site secured, the next step was designing a campus that matched the university's modern ambitions. The committee launched a national architectural competition in early 1963. The winning proposal came from Vancouver architect Arthur Erickson and his partner Jeffrey Massey. Their design embraced the brutalist style, characterized by raw concrete, bold geometry, and exposed structural elements. It was a practical choice, cost-effective, durable, and modern, and it symbolized strength and transparency in public institutions. The approach aligned with the growing architectural movement across North America, seen in projects like Corbusier's Carpenter Center for the Visual Arts at Harvard and Boston City Hall. Drawing from these influences, Erickson and Massey adapted the style to the West Coast landscape, integrating dramatic forms with the contours of Burnaby Mountain. The result was a campus that broke from tradition and embodied the university's progressive goals, not just in its architecture, but in how it was organized. Erickson and Massey rejected the conventional North American model of isolated faculties in separate buildings. Instead, they envisioned a connected academic community, inspired by historic institutions like Al-Azhar, Oxford, and Cambridge, where courtyards and cloisters encouraged informal exchange. They placed a large open-air space at the center of their design, the academic quadrangle. This open-air courtyard became the heart of the university, with classrooms, lecture halls, and walkways connected around its perimeter. It was a practical layout meant to keep the entire academic community linked, physically and intellectually. Before construction began, a strip of trees was cleared along the ridge of the mountain to test the view. What they uncovered was a perfectly aligned sightline towards the Lions Gate Bridge. That access would go on to define the layout of the campus itself. The main corridor, the central spine of the university, was built directly along that line. Even in its isolation, the site offered a visual connection to the heart of the city. With the design finalized, the new institution also needed a name. The provincial government chose to honor Simon Fraser, the early 19th century explorer and fur trader who helped chart much of what would become British Columbia. Working for the Northwest Company, Fraser led a treacherous expedition down the Fraser River that now bears his name in 1808. Naming the university after him tied the institution to the province's colonial past, even as it aimed to reflect the changing values of a modern society. Construction moved quickly. With a tight timeline and growing public interest, crews worked around the clock to bring the campus to life atop Burnaby Mountain. Less than 2 years after the design competition, Simon Fraser University officially opened its doors on September 9, 1965. Nearly 2,500 students arrived that fall, far exceeding original expectations. Many of them were drawn not just by the promise of a new university, but by the energy and boldness that surrounded it. The campus was still unfinished in parts, with some buildings wrapped in scaffolding and classrooms echoing with the sound of ongoing work. But the message was clear. SFU was open for business and ready to do things differently. Universities like SFU were built on the belief that knowledge could shape the future. They weren't just about preparing people for jobs, they were about preparing people for leadership, innovation, and resilience. The same idea of preparing for the future is what led me to a book I think you'll find fascinating. It's called The Book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding a Civilization by Hungry Minds, easily one of the most thought-provoking books I've seen. What if society collapsed tomorrow? Would you know how to restart? This 400-page book is packed with essential knowledge: agricultural, engineering, communication, survival. It blends ancient wisdom with modern science through smart practical content and stunning visuals. It's not some dry manual. It's a visual masterpiece that raised over $3.2 million on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, with more than 50 professionals, artists, scientists, architects, and designers contributing their expertise. If you're into science, history, or just want to be better prepared, this book is worth checking out. It also makes a great gift. You can find the link in the description or by scanning the QR code. Use my code HistoryOfBritishColumbia10 for 10% off. Thanks to Hungry Minds for sponsoring this video. The early years at SFU were marked by rapid growth, both in enrollment and reputation. By 1967, just 2 years after opening, the student population had more than doubled. New buildings were being added to keep pace, and the university quickly developed a reputation for being bold, not just in its architecture, but in its academic culture. Courses were interdisciplinary, faculty were young and often recruited from outside Canada. There was an energy on campus that set it apart from more established institutions, but with that came tension. SFU became known as a hotbed for student activism, faculty disputes, and administrative shakeups. While some saw the turbulence as growing pains, others believed it was the natural outcome of a university that promised to do things differently from the start. By 1968, just 3 years after opening, SFU was in the national spotlight, not for academic achievements, but for unrest. Students staged sit-ins, faculty members clashed openly with administration. The political science, sociology, and anthropology department became ground zero for ideological conflict, culminating in a high-profile faculty dismissal and campus protests that earned SFU the nickname Berkeley North. As the decade closed, SFU began to find its footing. The explosive growth slowed, leadership stabilized, and the university started maturing into its role. By the mid-70s, SFU had shed much of its early turbulence, focusing instead on expanding programs, building its research capacity, and defining its identity as a forward-thinking institution. That momentum carried into the decades that followed. In the 1980s and 90s, SFU began pushing beyond Burnaby Mountain. Recognizing the need to serve the region's growing and diverse population, the university opened a downtown Vancouver campus in 1989, starting with Harbour Centre. Located in the heart of the city, the campus helped SFU connect with working professionals, lifelong learners, and the broader business and tech community. It was a strategic move that brought the university into the urban core. By the early 2000s, SFU expanded again, this time in Surrey. What began as a partnership with the Technical University of British Columbia evolved into a full-fledged SFU campus, officially opening in 2002. Located near the Surrey Central SkyTrain station, the new site reinforced SFU's commitment to accessibility and regional relevance. It also positioned the university at the center of BC's fastest-growing municipality, with programs tailored to emerging industries like tech, sustainability, and health sciences. That downtown Vancouver presence continued to grow. In 2010, SFU opened the Goldcorp Centre for the Arts in the restored Woodwards building. As the new home of the School for Contemporary Arts, it brought state-of-the-art performance and teaching space to Vancouver's downtown east side, while playing a key role in the area's culture and social revitalization. Today, SFU serves a diverse student body of over 37,000 students across its 3 campuses in Burnaby, Vancouver, and Surrey, including more than 8,000 international students from over 130 countries. As its campuses expanded, so did its presence on the playing field. The university built a strong presence in athletics, becoming the only Canadian school to compete in the NCAA for over a decade. That move gave SFU teams international exposure and access to a higher level of competition, particularly in football, wrestling, and track and field. It was a bold step that reflected the university's reputation for doing things differently. Simon Fraser's athletic legacy isn't just about championships, it's about the people. Terry Fox, who studied kinesiology at SFU, trained on its grounds before setting out on his Marathon of Hope. Olympic gold medalist Daniel Agali represented SFU before going on to make history as Canada's first Olympic wrestling champion. And Louis Pasaglia, one of the most celebrated kickers in Canadian football history, launched his CFL career at SFU and went on to become professional football's all-time leading scorer with 3,991 points over 25 seasons with the BC Lions. Today, SFU continues to invest in athletics through new partnerships and updated facilities, keeping student sport an active part of campus life. Meanwhile, despite all this outward growth, the Burnaby Mountain campus has remained SFU's core, and with that, it's faced its own unique challenges. Perched over 1,200 feet above sea level, the campus is known for its sweeping views, but also its isolation. While the climb to the campus has remained difficult, what's around it has changed dramatically. In recent years, Burnaby Mountain has seen rapid residential growth. High-rise condos, shops, and schools have transformed the area into a full-scale community known as University. Developed in partnership with SFU, it was designed to be walkable and sustainable, a sharp contrast to the campus's once secluded settings. But with that growth has come new pressure on transportation, more residents, more students, one narrow road. As congestion and winter weather continued to strain access, the proposed Burnaby Mountain gondola has gained momentum. Connecting the campus directly to the SkyTrain system, it promises faster, cleaner, and more reliable service year-round, especially when snow shuts down bus routes. It's not just a transit project, it's part of the university's plan to future-proof the mountain. Nearly 60 years later, SFU is no longer the upstart on the hill. It's a major institution with 3 campuses, thousands of students, and a footprint that spans Metro Vancouver. But its roots, shaped by bold decisions, architectural ambition, and a willingness to challenge convention, are still visible on Burnaby Mountain. Today it's ranked Canada's top comprehensive university by Maclean's magazine, a title it's held for 16 of the past 17 years.